Hello everyone, my name's Percy number 6, and today I'm really excited to talk about lost media of one of my favorite shows as a kid, Bob the Builder. And I mean, Bob the Builder is a franchise, is a pretty successful kids television show. First came out in late 1998, and as recently as late 2018, we've had episodes. So for 20 years, Bob the Builder was on air, and I feel as big of a franchise as Bob the Builder, we've probably not seen the last of it, even though it's been 2 years since a new episode's come out. I feel like someday we're going to see Bob the Builder again. But the main event of all this, the lost media. So this pilot, it was originally produced in May 1997, and for years we knew very little of it. We just saw an image of one little part of this pilot video. We knew the basic plot of it, and we knew of this character Dig, which is what we all know now as Scoop, and then Bob, which both look very different from what we actually see on the show today. And I think what the most exciting part is of seeing the pilot actually as a video, not just one small image. I mean, there's so much to it. For one, it's actually Digger was the name, not Dig, which that's just small little difference, but it's such a big change to go from Dig to Digger. Like Digger makes more sense as a name than Dig, and Scoop is the better name, but it's like Digger could have worked maybe, who knows. But seeing that and hearing the voices too, because Neil, I hope I'm not mispronouncing his name, Neil Morrissey, he was originally Bob's voice actor in this pilot, and he was also Bob's voice actor in other characters too in the television show. So they kept him, but they replaced the voice actor for Digger/Scoop. So it's interesting, it's like, what was in the mind of the producers to make that decision? Was it his vast array of characters he could voice act, because that would make sense? Maybe when they pitched this pilot, the producers heard that and they're like, that's Bob the Builder's voice. It's like if you're into Thomas the Tank Engine or know about it, Brett Allcroft, who was in charge of the television show, she heard Ringo Starr one day on her television without even seeing who it was. She just heard the voice, and she's like, that's who is the voice of Thomas the Tank Engine. And Ringo Starr ended up being the narrator for the first couple seasons. So it's funny how things like that work. Like maybe that's what happened, and maybe they're like, we don't like this voice for Digger, and that's why they did it. Maybe that's what, I mean, we never know. We never truly know unless somehow we can be in contact with those people. Mr. Harvey King's actually the user who found this. Apparently he talked to one of the producers and was able to get it out for us to see what this actual pilot was. And it's really interesting actually seeing that, because like the voice, I mean, for example, I mean, except for maybe being told, which I'm pretty sure was not knowledge prior to this pilot being released, but you can't tell who's the voice actor in one image. So to go from not even knowing that the pilot Bob is the same Bob that was in the television show in the UK, that's so exciting to hear. So let's start with talking about Scoop and the difference between the Digger prototype and what Scoop ultimately was. Watching this pilot, what really surprised me was, minus a few little minor details, the Scoop model here in the pilot versus what actually happened with Scoop are near identical. There's very, very few differences. The light at the top of Scoop versus Digger's a little bit different. It's more just a single light in the middle, while the one on Digger's more like a lookout light. I don't know how you describe it the best way, but you know, it can kind of look up and down, while Scoop's, it's more of a safety light that would just go on, which we didn't see much, if at all, in the series. And then the front wheels for Scoop, same idea, however, Digger's they're just normal wheels. Scoop's, they more go up and down, which I think was a smart move to make. When you have vehicles like this, you know, you want to give as much emotion, and I'm not going to go into a whole Thomas the Tank Engine discussion here, but that's kind of like what they started doing in the recent series, where they jump and stuff to an extent. Like that's their goal there, right? You want to show more emotion. It's hard to show emotion and stuff in a machine in general, but especially if they just stay still. So definitely a smart move there by Bob the Builder, the team to make these wheels move for Scoop when they didn't for Digger. Beyond that, there's really not any differences between Scoop and Digger, which, like I said, surprised me a lot. The only other big difference here is how the face part is structured between Digger and Scoop. Now, Digger's eyes are where realistically, if this was an actual machine that people could go inside, it's the windshield. And they made the right move. I mean, plain and simple, they made the right move putting the eyes where they did for Scoop, because ultimately, I mean, you look at Bob's 5 machines he had on his early on in the show. I mean, where would you put the eyes for Dizzy if this was how it would go? And I mean, it worked here for Digger. Like, honestly, looking at Digger, I think it would have been fine. I really think the Digger model itself, if that's the one they went with, I think would have worked fine. I don't think it's as good as Scoop, but it's like, we're talking about like a very small difference. I think Digger's just a little bit worse. But it just wouldn't have worked for the rest of the team. Digger or Scoop, whatever you want to call him, would have been like the odd man out when it comes to the rest. Because, I think it would have looked weird on Rolly. I think it would have looked weird on Lofty. Muck probably it could have worked with. But like I said, Dizzy, no way it would work with. So they made a right move with where they put the eyes. Also, the mouth structure, they do a better job with it. Obviously, until they go into CGI, they don't actually talk, but I think they do a better job. It's kind of like Thomas the Tank Engine, where they just have different face or mouth expressions that they put on for a Digger here. So I think it works out how they did it in the series. The few changes they made from Digger to Scoop were the smart changes. However, the one thing I want to bring up that to me is very interesting is if you look on the side of Digger, he has the number 1 on it. And then when you look at the sheds, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are very interesting facts. And honestly, I'm kind of surprised they didn't go this route. They didn't give the machines numbers. Honestly, I think that's a really great fact about Thomas the Tank Engine, how so many of the engines have numbers, especially kids, they all have favorite numbers and stuff. Like that number alone, like if you see in the store, you see sure it's early numbers, but I mean, I don't know what kids' favorite numbers are. Every person has a different favorite number, but it's so easy. Like, I mean, me personally, 5, sure, James wasn't my favorite, but it's easy like that to relate to. I'm surprised they didn't go that route. The biggest question to me is there's only 4, and Bob's original team had 5. So my thoughts are, 1, in the original early seasons of Bob the Builder, Lofty didn't have a shed or a roof to cover him. He slept outside, unfortunately. So maybe that's what they were going to go for here, right? Like Lofty was going to sleep outside anyway. Or there wasn't going to be a 5th machine. And I could probably go into a whole different video talking about it. If I had to guess which one of those two, I'd probably lean towards there wasn't a 5th machine, in part because of the reboot Bob the Builder from a few years ago. Dizzy and Rolly weren't real, they're still part of the team, but they weren't featured members of the team anymore. And that's kind of my mindset with it. It's like, oh, we can get away with not having a Rolly or a Dizzy, so maybe that's the mindset here. I don't know, but that's kind of my thoughts when it comes down to like the sheds and numbers. And finally, let's compare the Bobs. I think it's really funny how the pilot Bob versus the original Bob are really different in a lot of ways. And I'm sure they don't regret the decision in changing Bob. Obviously, it was an iconic face for well over a decade for this brand. They definitely made the right decision switching. And I wonder if part of the reason they did that is because of Fireman Sam. I think they look very similar, Pilot Bob and Fireman Sam. Both have a yellow hat, if that's what you want to call it. I think the face structure is very similar. Looks like height-wise are very similar. It looks very similar, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they were going for in this pilot, taking an iconic figure, Fireman Sam, and redesigning, and then afterwards, it's like, okay, we got that down, they like that, now let's create a character of our own that we would like. And I also think it's funny that the 2015 reboot Bob, I think actually looks more similar to Pilot Bob than the Bob that we originally got. And part of me wants to think, oh, maybe they looked back at this pilot and that they took Pilot Bob and updated him a little bit, but realistically they probably didn't go that direction, but I think it's still fun to think. But at the end of the day, Pilot Bob and Digger, definitely right decisions to change them into what we actually got for Bob and Scoop. And I think I like Digger a lot more than I do Pilot Bob. I think they probably would have been fine if that's the style of machines they went with Digger, but I don't think the show would have got the level of success it did if this is the Bob they went with. They could have got away with Scoop. I don't think they would have been able to been on TV long if this is the Bob they went with. So definitely the smart decision here to change to the Bob we got. So there we have it, my first Lost Media video on this channel about one of my favorite shows growing up, Bob the Builder. And this is my first Bob the Builder video I've done. I actually did one a few years ago talking about how I think the reboot Bob is better than the original. I'll leave a link to that video in the description if you want to go ahead and check that out. But I'd appreciate any feedback, positive or negative, to this. As I said, it's a new venture for me. Maybe Lost Media is something I need to dig into more. I know there's some more information that I could have found, but I think that would be a better suited for a part 2. So if you enjoyed this video, please let me know, and maybe there needs to be a part 2, or maybe I need to go search for new Lost Media. But regardless, I thank you all for taking the time to watch this video, and until next time, this is Percy number 6. Have a great day.